What is a city?
A city is a town that has grown very large. In a city, a lot of people live and work in a very small area. Cities are usually centers of manufacturing, business, government, and culture. They offer a variety of jobs and activities that attract people from farms and small villages and towns, as well as from many different places around the world. Before the Industrial Revolution, beginning in the 1800s in the United States, most people lived and worked on farms. Now, with modern methods of agriculture that include complex machinery, scientific breeding, and chemical pesticides, farms require far fewer workers. On the other hand, the need for city workers has grown. In the past 40 years, the number of people in the world who live in cities has doubled to nearly 2/3 of Earth's population. In Africa, Asia, and Latin America, most people are still farmers. But as the countries located there develop more modern industries, their cities will grow and fewer people will live off the land.
Why are some animals active only at night?
Many animals, including lots of large predators, are diurnal, meaning they are active during the day and sleep at night. Others are nocturnal, sleeping throughout the day in burrows, dens, caves, or trees, emerging at night to find food. Nocturnal animals that are predators use the cover of darkness to hunt their prey without being seen. Those that are prey can also use the darkness to hide. In general, there is less competition for food at night. In desert climates, nights have the added advantage of being cooler. Many animals spend the hottest part of the day sleeping and conserving energy, coming out in the cool night air to hunt for a meal. Nocturnal animals have special adaptations that allow them to function in darkness. Several nighttime creatures, including owls and cats, have eyes that are a certain shape and have a particular kind of cell that helps them see with very little light. Bats, the only flying mammals, are usually nocturnal, and some species get around in the dark by using a kind of sonar called echolocation. The bats make sounds that bounce off nearby objects, and when the sound waves return, they carry information about the location and size of those objects. Good hearing and senses of smell also come in handy for nocturnal animals. Some animals leave a scented trail, excreting fluid produced in glands in their bodies, to make it easier for them to find their way back in the dark.
Why, then, are the buttons on women's clothing arranged in an opposite way? For fastening from right to left?
Although no one knows for sure, it is believed that the tradition for arranging women's buttons began long ago, when buttons were considered very fine ornaments, made of silver, gold, and jewels. Women who could afford many fine clothes with beautiful buttons usually had maids who dressed them. It was easier for maids, who were usually right-handed, to help with their mistress's clothing if the buttons that faced them were fastened from left to right. Of course, today, nearly all women dress themselves. And it would make sense if all clothes buttoned with the ease of the right-hander in mind. But the tradition of button arrangement is so old and women are so used to fastening them a certain way that the situation is unlikely to change.
Why do bicycle tires lose air so fast?
Early bicycle tires were made out of solid rubber. Before that, iron covered the edges of wooden bicycle wheels. Solid rubber tires made bicycling a bumpy experience because they were unable to provide any cushioning on rough roads. When the air-filled rubber bicycle tire was invented, it made riding a lot more comfortable. But along with the comfort of air-filled tires came the frequent task of filling them up. The rubber that is used to make bicycle tires is thin and porous, which means that it has tiny microscopic pores, or holes, through which air can escape over time. Air that is pumped into bicycle tires is pressurized, meaning it is compressed into a much smaller space than it would ordinarily occupy. Without pressurized air inside, a bicycle tire would not have its firm shape. Air under high pressure, like all gases, moves or migrates to surrounding areas that have lower pressure, traveling even through fairly solid materials. So air in a bicycle tire naturally tries to escape through the valve stem that is used to fill it and the inner tube that holds it. So even bicycles that don't undergo the wear and tear of frequent use eventually end up with flat tires.
What is the difference between a squid and an octopus?
Both are marine creatures, and both are cephalopods, a type of mollusk. An octopus has 8 limbs, while a squid has 8 arms and 2 long tentacles with flattened ends. Suckers line the undersides of their arms in rows, appearing also on the flattened parts of the tentacles. The tentacles are much longer than the arms and are used to capture prey and bring it to the squid's mouth. Squids can swim very fast, up to 23 miles per hour, usually backwards. And they travel in schools, unlike the slow and solitary octopus. A squid's body is also quite different from an octopus's. While the octopus has a bell-shaped body, the squid has a long, cigar-shaped body. Its eyes, complex like those of the octopus, are located on the sides of its head.
Why are babies born without teeth?
Babies don't have any teeth at first because they don't need them. They receive all their nourishment from liquid food, breast milk or formula during their first few months. When babies are born, their digestive systems are not yet fully mature, and they cannot process solid food well. While capable of sucking, their mouths and tongues are not yet ready for the complicated process of chewing and swallowing solid food. Babies change quickly, though, and by about 4 months they need to eat some kind of solid food to get the calories they need to keep growing. But the food that they eat is soft or soupy because they still don't have any chewing teeth. Still, babies can use their gums and tongues pretty well to eat specially prepared solid foods. And gumming hard foods prepares babies for the time when they will have a full set of teeth in their mouths, at about 2 years old.
Why are crocodiles and alligators such good hunters?
One advantage crocodiles and alligators have over their enemies and prey is that they can grow to be fairly large. Alligators can be as big as 19 feet, almost 6 meters, and crocodiles, considered the largest and heaviest living reptiles, can be slightly bigger. They have huge, crushing jaws and massive, powerful tails that help them swim and can be used to thrash their opponents. Perhaps their most useful feature as hunters is the positioning of their eyes and nostrils on the top of their heads. This trait allows alligators and crocodiles to keep most of their bodies submerged in the water, hidden from view, while they wait for an animal to come to the water's edge for a drink. The water-loving reptiles can then snatch their prey, pulling the animal into the water to drown it before eating it.
What does alcohol do?
A short while after a person takes a drink of beer, wine, or liquor, the alcohol in that drink will be absorbed into the bloodstream and transported to the brain and the rest of the body. The rate at which that happens depends on the person's size, the concentration of alcohol in the drinks, and how much food is in his or her stomach. Alcohol interferes with the messages normally passed from nerve cells to the rest of the body. A drunk person can't hear, see, smell, taste, or feel as well as a sober person, and drunk people are less sensitive to pain. Alcohol is a depressant, which means it slows down brain function. That slowing gives people a relaxed feeling. But it also means that the senses are dulled and reaction time is slower. With alcohol in their blood, people are less coordinated and lose some control over their muscles. Many drunk people have trouble walking without staggering. A particularly dangerous effect of alcohol is the resulting lack of inhibitions, or inner restrictions over behavior. While most people wouldn't drive into oncoming traffic while sober, it might seem like a fun thing to do when drunk. People are more likely to get into fights, drive dangerously, and generally put themselves into risky situations when they are drunk. And because alcohol is a depressant, it will only increase the feelings of sadness or loneliness that drive some people to drink in the first place. For people under the legal drinking age, 21 in the United States, alcohol can also cause problems with the police. Anyone under age 21 caught with alcohol or under the influence of alcohol can face legal penalties.
What did dinosaurs eat?
Dinosaurs came in many different shapes and sizes, and they also had a variety of diets. Most dinosaurs ate plants, with the very large dinosaurs eating leaves from the tops of trees and smaller ones eating plants and bushes growing close to the ground. Some dinosaurs were meat eaters, with most hunting other animals for food, and some being scavengers who ate the flesh of dead animals they encountered. The hunters preyed on plant-eating dinosaurs and even on each other. Smaller meat-eating dinosaurs fed on other animals, like insects, lizards, and mammals. Evidence suggests that some dinosaurs hunted in packs, while others lived solitary lives.
What is a vegetarian?
A vegetarian is a person that does not eat any animal flesh, including meat, poultry, or seafood. A vegetarian diet can consist of fruits, vegetables, breads, nuts, and pasta as well as dairy products like cheese and milk. Some vegetarians, known as vegans, vegans, do not eat anything produced by an animal. So they eliminate all dairy and products made with eggs from their diets as well. Vegetarians have existed since ancient times. When certain religious or ethnic groups advocated the special diet for religious reasons or health concerns, or on moral grounds, believing that killing any living creature for food was wrong. The reasons people choose to be vegetarians today are much the same as they once were, with health concerns playing a large role. Many people believe that a vegetarian diet rich in fiber and low in fat, as opposed to the higher fat quantities found in meat-heavy diets, reduces the risk of heart disease and some forms of cancer.
If there are so many stars all around us, why can we see them only at night?
When our sun shines on us during the day, the light is so bright that we cannot see any other stars in the sky. The sun is much closer to Earth than are other stars, making it appear even brighter than it is. But at night, when the part of Earth on which we are located is turned away from the sun, we are able to detect all the stars that are close enough to our planet to be seen unless clouds get in the way, of course.
Which animal is the most intelligent?
Ask 5 scientists to list the most intelligent animals, and you'll get 5 different lists. Most experts believe that humans are the most evolved, complex, intelligent animals, but there are some people who question this. Part of the problem in determining the most intelligent animals is that there are several different kinds of intelligence: the ability to communicate, to adapt to the environment, and to solve problems. And scientists have always struggled to learn how an animal's mind works when communication between animals and humans is so limited. Many studies have shown that primates are the most intelligent animals. The primate family includes human beings as well as chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, baboons, gibbons, and monkeys. Those animals, with chimps at the top of the list, hold the top 6 spots on biologist Edward O. Wilson's list of the 10 most intelligent animals aside from humans. Primates have large, complex brains. And they can build complicated cultures and, to some degree, control their environment. They can communicate with others of their species and develop language skills. Several marine animals, including the killer whale and many dolphin species, have been listed as some of the most intelligent animals on the planet. Elephants and pigs are also believed to be highly intelligent.
How does an eel make electricity?
The electric eel is a South American fish with a long, worm-like body. It can grow to a length of 9 feet, 2.75 meters, and weigh nearly 50 pounds, 22.7 kilometers. The electric eel floats through slow-moving water searching for fish to eat. It breathes air, which means it must come to the surface every few minutes. The electric eel has organs made up of electric plates that run the length of its tail, which makes up most of its body length. This eel, which has no teeth, uses electric shocks to stun its prey, probably to protect its mouth from the struggling, spiny fish it is trying to eat. The eel shocks the fish with several brief electrical charges, temporarily paralyzing it so the eel can suck it into its stomach. The electrical charge can be anywhere from 300 to 600 volts, enough of a shock to jolt a human being. Electric eels are not aggressive, though, and primarily use their electricity to ward off enemies and stun their prey.
Why can't some people hear?
The inability to hear, or deafness, can occur for many reasons. Some types of hearing loss result from something blocking sound as it travels from the outer ear to the eardrum and the tiny bones in the middle ear. Other types of loss arise from damage or defect to the inner ear or the auditory nerve, which is the nerve that carries sound signals from the inner ear to the brain. Deafness can happen as a result of disease, including severe ear infections, or it can be inherited. with the deafness being apparent at birth or sometimes showing up years later. Injuries and accidents also account for many cases of deafness. Extremely loud noises, like those that come from an explosion, can cause deafness, though that loss of hearing is sometimes temporary. People who work in noisy factories or those who are frequently exposed to very loud music can also develop hearing loss over time. Many people gradually lose some or all of their hearing when they reach old age. But some of those types of hearing loss can be overcome by wearing a hearing aid, which makes noises like speech or music louder.
How big can a giant squid get?
Squids range in size from tiny, less than 3/4 of an inch, or 1.5 centimeters, to gigantic. The giant squid, scientifically known as the Archaeoteuthis, can reach 65 feet. 20 meters, in length, with tentacles that are close to 20 feet, 6 meters, long. The eye of a giant squid can be as big as a foot, 30 centimeters, across. They can weigh nearly a ton, 2,000 pounds, or 908 kilograms. Giant squids are the largest invertebrates ever to have lived. Scientists don't know much about the giant squid, and what they do know comes entirely from observations of dead specimens that have been washed up on shore or found in the stomachs of sperm whales. Giant squid's number one, and possibly only, predator. Although numerous scientific teams have searched for giant squids using some of the most sophisticated tracking equipment available, none has been able to catch sight of this mysterious animal. Part of the problem in finding a giant squid in its natural habitat is that these creatures may live in the deepest part of the ocean, a very difficult area for humans to explore. Because so little is known for sure about giant squids, many myths and stories have been told over the years about this supposedly ferocious sea monster attacking ships and eating people. No such stories have ever been proven, however, and many scientists believe they are completely inaccurate.
Which dinosaurs were the smallest?
When most people think of dinosaurs, they picture the huge ones, like the giant plant-eating sauropods or the large carnivores, meat-eaters, like Tyrannosaurus rex. But some dinosaurs were actually very small. The smallest of them may have been the Compsognathus, pronounced Compsahgnathus, which was only about as big as a chicken.
What is the strongest muscle in my body?
The strongest muscles in the human body are the jaw muscles. Working together, they can close your back teeth, molars. With a force of 200 pounds, 90.7 kilograms, or more. Muscles become stronger the more they are used. And jaw muscles get a lot of exercise when you talk and eat. The body's most active muscles, however, are those that move the eyes.
Why do I have to wear braces?
Straight teeth that are spaced well in the mouth are easier to clean. They bite and chew better, and they last longer. They look nice, too. Few people have perfect teeth. But doctors called orthodontists can change the position of teeth to work and look better. These changes are usually done during childhood and early adolescence, when teeth and jaws are softer and still growing. Special appliances like braces, wires, bands, and more are used to slowly, over many months, push or pull teeth into their correct positions.
How large is the world's biggest spider?
The largest known spiders in the world are the Goliath bird-eating spiders, which live in the coastal rainforests of northeastern South America. They can become as big as dinner plates. The largest recorded specimen had a leg span of 11 inches, 28 centimeters. This spider, a type of tarantula, has a somewhat misleading name. So-called bird-eating spiders don't usually eat birds but instead dine on snakes, frogs, and insects.
Why are there two scales for measuring temperature?
Temperature is the amount of heat in a gas, liquid, or solid. Heat results from the kinetic energy, or rate of movement, of the molecules in objects or matter. If the molecules move slowly, the temperature is lower, and if they move quickly, the temperature is higher. Any number of different scales can be used to measure heat, all that is needed to create a scale are two reference temperatures and degrees that mark off intervals in the range of temperatures between them. In the two temperature measurement systems used most often Celsius, also called centigrade, and Fahrenheit. The two reference points are the boiling and freezing temperatures of water. Celsius is based on the metric system, so 100 intervals or degrees separate these 2 points. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius and boils at 100 degrees Celsius. The Fahrenheit scale, widely used in English-speaking countries until recently and still used in the United States today, has 180 units or degrees that separate the freezing and boiling points of water, with 32 degrees Fahrenheit being the freezing point and 212 degrees Fahrenheit being the boiling point. Other temperature measurement scales include the Kelvin scale, which is used in astronomy and other sciences. One of its reference points is absolute zero, which in theory is the lowest possible temperature. the point at which molecules have no kinetic energy or heat. The Celsius, Fahrenheit, and Kelvin scales all got their names from the men who invented them. Mathematical equations can be used to convert temperature measurements from one scale to another. To convert Fahrenheit to Celsius, subtract 32 from the temperature and then divide by 1.8. To convert Celsius to Fahrenheit, multiply the temperature by 1.8 and then add 32. To convert Celsius to Kelvin, simply add 273.15 to the Celsius temperature.
How can desert plants live without water?
No plant could live in a true desert, where it never rains. But the places where cacti and other desert plants grow do get rain once in a while, even if it's only every couple of years or so. When it rains, desert plants quickly take up the water through their roots, storing it in fleshy leaves and stems. That stored water allows them to survive until the next rain comes. The roots of desert plants are either very deep, drawing from hidden underground water, or widespread and shallow to best gather the water that hits the ground. Their leaves and stems usually have a heavy, waxy coating to help keep moisture in. The tiny pores, or stomata, on their leaves through which carbon dioxide, oxygen, and water pass are located in pits instead of on the surface to further minimize moisture loss. Some desert plants even keep their stomata closed during the blistering heat of the day and open them in the cool of the night, the reverse of what most plants do. Cactus plants are particularly well adapted to their hot, dry surroundings. Over millions of years, the leaves of cacti became so small to reduce water loss that on many only sharp spines remain. Their thick stems or branches now do the work that leaves ordinarily do, making food through photosynthesis. Often the stems of a cactus are ribbed, allowing any morning dew to run down and be absorbed by the plant's roots. The ribs also allow the plant to expand and contract according to the amount of water it has stored inside. After a good rain, up to 90% of a cactus's weight may be water.
Why do people have to die?
All living things must die. It is the final part of the biological cycle of life. A flowering plant, for instance, springs from a seed, grows, blossoms, produces seeds for the next season, fades, and dies. Similarly, an animal is born, grows and matures, reproduces, ages, and dies. Old plants and animals must make way for new plants and animals, through which the cycle of life can continue. If plants and animals did not die, eventually there would not be enough food, water, or space in the world for life to flourish. Even dead plants and animals contribute to the cycle of life. for their remains enrich the soil for the next generation of living things. New generations of plants and animals are needed to ensure the survival of life on our planet. The world's environment is constantly changing, and new plants and animals with unique characteristics resulting from the combined genetic contributions of their parents may be better equipped to survive under the evolving conditions. This process of change and improved survival, which has taken place gradually over millions of years, ever since life began, is called evolution. Just like all plants and other animals, people also experience this biological cycle of life. A person is born, grows into physical maturity during adolescence, perhaps has a family in adulthood, ages, and then dies. At death, the cycle of life is completed as that individual makes way for following generations. But because people are such special beings, they can live on in so many other ways besides in the genetic makeup of their offspring after they die. A great painter or writer, for example, can live on in the work that he or she has left behind for others to enjoy. A politician may leave behind new laws that improve the lives of many. A parent or friend may live on in the minds and hearts of his or her loved ones, thanks to the experiences and affection that were shared and the memories left behind. The time that each person spends on earth, and every contribution he or she makes, however small, like planting a tree to make the world a little healthier, is an important part of the cycle of life and has an impact on future generations.
What is the tallest building in the world?
For many years the Sears Tower in Chicago was the tallest building in the world. Following 2 years of construction, the skyscraper was completed in 1973. Its 110 stories reach 1,450 feet. 442 meters, into the sky, and twin antennae towers on top add another 250 or so feet, about 76 meters. With a foundation extending 100 feet into the ground. The great building weighs 222,500 tons, 445 million pounds, or about 200 million kilograms. About 12,000 people work in its many offices. And about 1.5 million people visit its observation skydeck each year, from which they can see 4 states, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin, on a clear day. In 1998, though, a taller structure called the Petronas Towers was completed in Kuala Lumpur, the capital city of Malaysia. While just 88 stories high, 241-foot pinnacles, slender peaks on the building's top bring its height to 1,482 feet, 8 inches, about 452 meters. Not to be outdone, however, builders in Chicago are already at work on plans for another skyscraper that will be taller still.
Why are there 7 days in a week?
Scholars are not sure why it was decided that a week is 7 days long. There are many different theories. The beginning of the Bible states that the world was made in 6 days, and on the seventh day God rested. This biblical source, however, does not explain the 7-day week established in societies that did not know of or follow the teachings of the Bible. One widely held theory explains that in ancient times, many civilizations all over the world believed that each day was governed by either the sun, the moon, or one of the 5 planets that were then known. Because each of the 7 astronomical bodies ruled one day, there were 7 days in a week. Before the 7-day week became widely accepted, many societies based their week on the amount of time between market days. If it was decided that farmers needed 9 days to accumulate and transport their goods to the marketplace, and the market day was the 10th day, then the week was 10 days long.
How many teeth do I have?
You have 2 sets of teeth. The first set, your baby teeth, consists of 20 teeth. These teeth are small so they can fit in the small jaws of a young child. They usually break through singly or in pairs between the ages of 6 months and 30 months. At 6 years of age, a larger set of teeth begin to surface, slowly replacing your baby teeth. 32 new teeth will eventually line your growing jaws, the last coming in around the age of 18. These permanent teeth will perform all your eating tasks for the rest of your life. Your 4 front teeth, top and bottom, sharp incisors cut and tear off food when you bite, along with your 4 pointed canine teeth. The flat-topped bicuspids, premolars, and molars near the back of your mouth crush and chew your food.
What kind of animal is a seahorse?
These unusual and fascinating creatures offer many surprises. They are fish, though with their bony rings, horse-like heads, and curly, gripping tails, they don't look anything like other fish. Most seahorses are quite small, around 1.5 inches, 4 centimeters, in length, though the largest of them can be nearly 12 inches long, 30 centimeters. Scientists believe that seahorses mate with a single partner, a behavior called monogamy that is rare in the animal world. And, even more unusual, it is the male seahorse that gets pregnant, carrying and nurturing the fertilized eggs in a pouch in his body. The female deposits the eggs in the male's body, and he provides oxygen and nutrients until the young are ready to hatch. The seahorse population has been threatened in recent years by destruction of its habitat and by overfishing. Hundreds of thousands of seahorses are caught and sold each year to large aquariums and to people who simply like to collect unusual animals. Many more are sold to several countries in the Far East, where seahorses are believed to have medicinal value.
How do frogs croak?
Frogs croak for the same reason that many animals make noises, to track down and then select a mate. Scientists have discovered that females can recognize the sounds made by their own species. So they don't waste their time seeking out a male that they wouldn't be able to breed with. Frogs can make their croaking noises because they have simple vocal cords consisting of two slits in the bottom of the mouth. These slits open into what is called a vocal pouch. When air passes from the lungs through the vocal cords, a sound is produced. The inflating and deflating vocal pouch makes the sound louder or quieter. That sound changes depending on the kind of frog there are as many different kinds of croaks as there are frogs.
Why do some people use wheelchairs?
A person may use a wheelchair for many different reasons. Many people in wheelchairs suffer from partial or complete paralysis, which is the loss of control over the movement of some part of the body. Paralysis can result from injury to the nervous system, including the brain or spinal cord, or damage to the muscles that control movement. It can also be caused by certain diseases that affect the nervous system, including multiple sclerosis. Some people use a wheelchair not because they are paralyzed but because an injury or disease like arthritis or scoliosis has made walking extremely painful or difficult. Many older people, suffering from a stroke, a broken hip, or perhaps simply the weakness and frailty that sometimes accompany old age, must use a wheelchair to get around. There are many different kinds of wheelchairs. From the manual types that are propelled by moving railings attached to the wheels, to electric wheelchairs that are operated by hand controls that resemble the joysticks used in video games. Some people prefer a motorized cart, or scooter, with either 3 or 4 wheels. These carts are generally smaller and easier to maneuver than typical wheelchairs. While wheelchairs have the potential to give disabled people much more freedom of movement, that freedom would be useless without things like ramps at building entrances and wheelchair-accessible bathrooms. Thanks to the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, a law passed in 1990, public buildings and transportation, like buses, must have facilities to accommodate people in wheelchairs. The ADA also makes it illegal for employers to discriminate against disabled people. Young people with disabilities are protected by the Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975, which specifies that all children, regardless of disability, have the right to a free and accessible education.
What happens when people stutter?
People who stutter speak with many uncontrolled pauses and repetitions of sounds. It is caused when some of the muscles involved in speech spasm, or contract abnormally. Talking is a complicated process that involves muscles that work the lungs, vocal cords, throat, tongue, cheeks, and lips. When each part doesn't work precisely together, stuttering can occur. Stuttering is not uncommon in young children. They are still learning about language and searching for new words and new ways of putting them together. In speech. But well before a child is ready to enter school, help for stuttering should be found. Children who cannot communicate well with others become frustrated and start to feel bad about themselves and their abilities. Doctors don't really know why people stutter, though it seems to run in families and affects far more boys than girls. It is believed that a problem in the motor control center of the brain, along with nervous tension, causes the muscles of speech to spasm. Training to speak slowly and smoothly and to breathe deeply during talking often helps the problem.
It's like that aspirin went directly to the spot that hurt and somehow took away the pain. But how would it know where to go?
Actually, no pain reliever knows where to go. After you swallow the medicine, it goes through your digestive system and gets absorbed into your bloodstream, traveling throughout your body. So if you have a headache and at the same time happen to have a twisted ankle, the pain reliever you take will help both feel better. When your body experiences pain from a headache or a twisted ankle, say your cells produce a chemical called prostaglandin. When your nerve endings pick up on the presence of this chemical, they send messages to your brain, telling it that the pain is located in your head, or ankle, and whether it hurts a lot or a little. As the medicine in pain relievers makes its way through your body, it prevents the injured cells from making prostaglandin. Therefore the pain messages don't get to your brain. Or at least they don't get there as fast, and you no longer feel uncomfortable.
How does a thermos keep cold things cold and hot things hot?
A thermos is also called a vacuum bottle because it uses a vacuum space that has no air in it to keep heat from escaping from hot things inside. It also keeps heat from getting inside to make cold things warmer. The vacuum is located in a thin space between the thermos liner and its outer wall, where it stops the movement of heat to and from the outside air. A vacuum works in a thermos because it is empty of air and molecules, and therefore has no conductivity. Heat is caused by the motion of molecules. Because the opening of a thermos is also tightly sealed with a stopper or lid made of a non-conductive material, no heat can escape or enter there, either. Hot food stored in a thermos can keep its heat for many hours, in the same way. Cold food can remain cold because the vacuum insulates it from the warm air surrounding the thermos. The linings of thermoses used to be made of glass, which is a good insulator. The linings were also coated with silver, which made them shiny and reflective. Such mirrored liners worked very well. They were able to efficiently bounce back the invisible rays of heat energy, radiation, given off by all hot things. But there was one problem: glass thermos bottles broke easily. Today, most thermos containers are made of metal or plastic, which generally don't work quite as well. Also, because vacuums in thermoses aren't perfect, they contain some air, and because their lids don't seal perfectly, they cannot keep cold things cold and hot things hot forever.
How can plants like seaweed grow underwater?
As long as they get enough sunlight to carry out photosynthesis. Plants can live at various depths in oceans or other bodies of water. The stems of most underwater plants usually hold them upright so they can grow toward the light that filters down through their watery homes. When the countless animals that live in seas and lakes breathe, they provide water plants with the carbon dioxide they need for photosynthesis. As underwater plants release oxygen during photosynthesis, you can sometimes see it bubble to the surface. In the same way that bubbles appear when people breathe out underwater. Seaweeds are odd underwater plants because they don't have true roots, stems, or leaves. They are really just larger forms of single-celled algae, the simplest type of plant that exists. Many seaweeds have fronds that look like leaves and stalks that look like stems. Some even have holdfasts that do the work of roots, attaching them to rocks or seabeds. But these special parts don't do different jobs, like they do in most plants. All parts of a seaweed plant absorb water, carbon dioxide, minerals, and sunlight for photosynthesis. Algae are very important plants. Water covers much of the world's surface, which means algae cover much of the world's surface too. All plants release oxygen as part of photosynthesis. And the large quantities of this simple plant make algae a major source of the oxygen we breathe. One of the most common types of seaweed, known as giant kelp, forms underwater forests in the oceans, providing shelter, food, and oxygen for countless sea animals. Some of these plants have fronds up to 200 feet, 61 meters, long and grow up to 75 feet, 23 meters, below the sea surface. A type of red seaweed can grow even deeper, up to 200 feet, or 61 meters, below the surface. Some seaweeds are eaten by people mostly in the East, and they are used to make things like fertilizers, cosmetics, and medicines.
What happens if I swallow chewing gum or other things that aren't food?
When you accidentally swallow something that isn't food, you really shouldn't worry about it. Unless the item is sharp, which could tear tissue as it makes its way through the digestive system. Or unusually large, which could cause blockages. Once gum or other things enter your stomach, the powerful muscles in its walls crush and churn it. And the strong enzymes and acids produced there break down nearly everything into small particles that make a thick soup. The nutrients in the soup then pass into your bloodstream and travel to all the cells in your body. Those things that can't be broken down by the stomach, which includes parts of many plant foods, or by more digestive juices in the small intestines, are moved along as solid waste and leave your body as part of a bowel movement. So things accidentally swallowed are either processed by your digestive system or find their way into the toilet. So you shouldn't worry that the bug you swallowed will set up a new home inside you. Or that the watermelon seed that slipped down your throat will grow into a big fat watermelon inside your stomach. Your stomach just isn't a good place for living things. One of the digestive juices made there, in fact called hydrochloric acid, is so powerful that it can burn a hole through clothing and other things in its concentrated form.
Why are some kids better students than others?
Some children do better in school than others for many reasons. All kids have different talents and abilities, and some of these just show up better in school. Some children may be naturally better at reading and writing and working with numbers, and at storing and using information. Most schoolwork requires these skills. So kids who are strong in these areas are likely to be better students. Other children, whose special talents may lie in music or art or sports, may not do quite as well. Still, most kids have enough ability to learn the basic skills taught in schools. Things that they will need to know to get along well in the world once they graduate. But remember that schoolwork does take effort. You can't learn if you don't work at it. A student can almost always become better by caring more and trying harder, even if it requires asking for special help. Good students usually come from families that consider education important, and they put a lot of time and effort into their studies.
How many time zones are there in the United States?
The continental United States, meaning the 48 states on the North American continent, which excludes Hawaii and Alaska, is divided into 4 time zones. From east to west, they are Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Each of these time zones is 1 hour apart, with times being successively earlier as you move west. So if it's 3 p.m. Eastern Time, it's 2 p.m. Central Time, 1 p.m. Mountain Time, and noon Pacific Time. The Alaska time zone is 1 hour behind Pacific time, so when it's noon in California, it's 11:00 a.m. in Alaska. Hawaii's time zone for part of the year is 1 hour behind Alaska. Hawaii does not participate in daylight saving time, however, so during that period. From April to October, when most of the U.S. states have set their clocks forward 1 hour. Hawaii stays at standard time and is 2 hours behind Alaska.
Why does the moon change shape?
The moon never really changes shape. But the part of the moon that reflects sunlight, which is the only part of the moon we see, varies throughout the month. It takes the moon about 30 days to make a complete orbit around Earth. During that time, its position relative to the Sun and Earth changes constantly. These positions are called phases of the moon. The part of the moon that faces us can look like a disk, full moon, a half moon, a slim crescent, or no moon at all, new moon.
What is addiction?
In many cases, substance abuse leads to addiction, which means the person taking the drug is dependent on it to feel pleasure or to not get sick. There are two different types of addiction. One type is called psychological addiction, which means the person taking the drug gets hooked on the pleasurable feelings associated with that drug. A physical addiction, on the other hand, means that the person has built up a tolerance to the effects of the drug, requiring more of the drug more often to achieve the same high. Eventually, the addicted person must take massive quantities of certain drugs to feel anything from it at all. And those quantities can sometimes reach deadly proportions. If an addicted person stops taking the drug, he or she will go through what is called withdrawal. That means the body has adjusted so much to having the drug in the system that the person feels sick without it. Withdrawal symptoms include fever, restlessness, vomiting, diarrhea, and severe dehydration. Some drugs are more addictive, or habit-forming, than others. Cigarettes, for example, contain nicotine, which is a highly addictive drug. Many cigarette smokers have a desire to quit but have a very difficult time doing so.
What is second-hand smoke?
Second-hand smoke is the smoke inhaled by people who are not themselves smoking but who are near others who are smoking. In the early 1990s, the United States Environmental Protection Agency declared that second-hand smoke can cause cancer and other diseases in people who have never actually smoked a cigarette themselves. As the dangers of second-hand smoke became widely known, Many laws were passed in the US to protect non-smokers from having to inhale another person's smoke. Some of these laws prevent people from smoking in public or government buildings. Non-smoking sections in restaurants have grown larger and larger, with some restaurants banning smoking altogether. As recently as 10 years ago, many people could smoke while sitting at their desks in a large office. Now such behavior is unheard of, and smokers usually have to go outside to have a cigarette.
Why do some fruits and vegetables turn brown after you cut them?
Some fruits and vegetables, like apples and potatoes, have chemicals in them that turn brown when they mix with oxygen in the air. A chemical reaction called oxidation causes the brown coating on the cut surfaces of such fruits and vegetables. This coating actually preserves the rest of the fruit or vegetable at least for a while by forming a protective coating that keeps oxygen from getting at the rest. By brushing the cut surface right away with lemon juice, you can keep oxygen from getting to the flesh of a fruit or vegetable and stop it from turning brown altogether.
Do all new plants grow from seeds?
Plants can reproduce in a number of ways, and many of those ways don't involve seeds. Simple, single-celled plants like algae, the living green covering that you see on some ponds, for instance, produce asexually, which means that male and female cells are not needed to create new life. The parent cell simply divides to create a new plant cell identical to itself. This method of reproduction, where an identical plant or clone is created, also occurs in more complex plant life, often growing from a parent plant's stems or roots. New plants receive water and food through connecting runners until they develop roots and leaves of their own. A strawberry plant, for example, often uses this method of reproduction. Bulb plants like tulips frequently reproduce in a similar way, growing new bulbs on the sides of parent bulbs, and cuttings parts of roots, stems, or leaves can be taken from many kinds of plants and grown into identical versions of the plants from which they came. But sexual reproduction, where male and female cells unite to create a new plant, is the most common method of plant reproduction. Plants like ferns do this through spores, and conifers, cone-bearing plants, and flowering plants achieve it through seeds. A plant created through sexual reproduction inherits genes from both parents, unless it is self-pollinated, and will not be identical to either. The changes that come about in offspring from the combination of genes works well because the plant's new genetic traits may allow it to survive better in an environment that is always changing.
What are chimneys for?
Since ancient times people have built fires to stay warm. When fires were built in small dwellings, an opening was needed through which smoke and other byproducts of burning like the dangerous gas carbon monoxide could escape. In places where houses were made of combustible, or easily burned, materials like wood and thatch, dried grasses, fires had to be built outside to protect such dwellings from going up in flames. But even under those circumstances, people eventually figured out a way to make indoor fires safely. They built stone hearths in the middle of their houses, well away from walls, and made holes in their roofs so that smoke could escape. These hearths came to be located in more convenient places once people learned how to build stone. Fireplaces topped with stone chimneys that channeled smoke safely out of dwellings, high above their roofs. Stone fireplaces could be safely built into the walls of any type of shelter. While our houses are now usually kept warm by central heating systems, we still build fires in fireplaces for temporary warmth and for their beauty and the cozy feeling they give. Stone or brick hearths and chimneys are still needed to protect house walls and roofs from fire. Even houses without fireplaces have chimneys because most furnaces make heat by burning fuel. The poisonous byproducts of this combustion usually flow out of a house by way of a chimney. Keeping the air indoors healthy and safe to breathe.
Why do snakes shed their skins?
Snakes grow rapidly when they are young, and they continue to grow throughout their lives. Their skin does not grow along with them, however. So they must shed their outer covering regularly, replacing it with a new, larger skin. Additionally, the scales covering a snake's body occasionally get damaged or wear out. All animals produce new cells to replace old, worn-out parts of their outer covering. For snakes, the replacement process does not happen bit by bit, but all at once, in a process called molding, or shedding. When the new skin is ready, the outer layer begins to loosen. The snake's eyes turn a milky blue color because the skin covering the eye cap has loosened. To help get the molting started, the snake may rub its head against a rock, pulling the skin loose from its head. It then crawls completely out of its old skin, turning it inside out in the process and revealing its brand new skin. The new skin has the exact same pattern of scales as the old. Snakes shed more when they are young and growing quickly than when they get older. But on average a snake will molt between 2 and 4 times a year.
What happens when my hand or foot falls asleep?
When a lot of weight is on your arm or leg for a certain amount of time, it goes numb, along with your hand or foot. Your limb has fallen asleep. Normally, blood flows freely through your arm or leg, bringing it oxygen and nutrients and taking away waste products. The pressure on your limb restricts blood flow. This restriction makes your cells work less efficiently there. Especially your nerve cells, which are connected to the touch sensors in your skin. That's why a sleeping limb feels numb. When the pressure is removed from your arm or leg, full blood flow and function gradually return. That's when you have that funny, prickly feeling called pins and needles. Your nerve cells irritated by the waste buildup in your body tissues are finally able to send regular messages to your brain, telling it that something is wrong with your circulation. But by that time your limb is already on its way to working normally again. The annoying prickly feeling soon disappears as full circulation returns and your nerves are no longer alarmed.